spending time with her husband, friends, family, including her 12 grandchildren. In her spare time, she connects and celebrates with the women involved in motorsports, taking you behind the wall about their journey of life, racing, and how they juggle everything to make it all work. Welcome to Racing Girls Rock Podcast. Strap in, window nets up, the pedals are down, and when the green flag drops, we go. Spending time with her husband, friends, family, including her 12 grandchildren. In her spare time, she connects and celebrates with the women involved in motorsports, taking you behind the wall about their journey of life, racing, and how they juggle everything to make it all work. Welcome to Racing Girls Rock Podcast. Strap in, window nets up, the pedals are down, and when the green flag drops, we go.
Hello, everyone. This is Melinda Russell with Racing Girls Rock Podcast. And it's my honor today to have Anna Kouba Bowers with me. She is been involved in racing for quite some time. And I'm excited to have her with us. She's got some exciting things going on in her life, and I'm going to let her share that with us. So welcome to the podcast, Anna.
Hi, yeah, thanks for having me. So I'm Anna, formerly known as Kouba, now Bowers. Been in racing for about 10 years, but, pretty much my whole life since I was 6 months old. We just actually have a new addition to our family, Bella Sue Bowers. She is now 3 weeks old. My husband, Ryan Bowers, also races sprint cars. And I have two sons, stepsons, Nolan and Brody, both 7 and 5. Also starting in racing. So, we're continuing the tradition through our family. And yeah, I'm just really excited to be here on the podcast.
Well, that's exciting. And to have a little girl now with those two boys, that has to make your family pretty much complete. So
Yeah.
that's pretty cool. I'm happy for you.
Yeah, thank
So,
you.
you started racing. I know you grew up in a racing family. So why don't you tell us about that? What was your family involved in racing, and how did you get started?
Yeah, so it's actually 82 years ago now. My grandpa had started racing midgets out in Colorado, and kind of started the family, legacy feat at that point with racing. From there, it spread to my dad, Joe Kouba, and then my uncle, Jimmy Kouba, who raced. My dad raced for over 30 years. My uncle still has been racing up to this day, so it's been kind of fun racing against him after watching him growing up all these years. And then my actual aunt Judy, Judy Kouba Dominic, she works in motorsports. She actually works for Team Chevy, working on NASCAR, IndyCar, funny car, all of that. So they kind of started it. It got passed down to my brother, myself, and my cousin Jake. So my brother Joseph and my cousin Jake. And we all race. So since I was 6 months old, I've been going to the track with them. It was kind of a family affair. All of us would be there. My cousin Jake and Katie, we would be at the races with my grandma Ethel. So it's been in the family for a long time, and kind of got spread to keeps going down generations, which is really, really fun to be a part of. And it's been really fun to race against, family week in and week out. And one competitive side and the moral support is just a lot of fun.
Yeah, and there's nothing better than having something where your whole family's involved.
Hmm.
It's nice that maybe your kids play football or do different things, but it's not the same as going to the track and your whole family's there. And then besides your blood relatives, you've got your race family. And it's every weekend, you're with those same people, and to me that's just one of the blessings of being involved in racing, is the people and the family atmosphere that you have. Even if you're competitive against them at times, it's still fun to hang out and be with them at the track. Yeah,
Yep. Yep. No, that's definitely the case.
exactly. So tell my listeners what kind of cars you race and where you race, and a little bit more about that.
Sure. Yeah, so actually I race, I started out more in the wing 360 sprints, up in the Midwest. Upper Midwest Sprint Car Series is kind of where I got my start. And kind of that's evolved. They've had a non-wing program up there, so I started dabbling in a non-wing. I was racing a bit of both for a couple years, and then focused just on the non-wing for a couple years as well. So we race, Minnesota, Upper Iowa, Wisconsin, the Dakotas. There's some racing out there. So yeah, that's where we focus on the most. Racing between the two. Like I said, I've raced a lot more non-wing the last couple years, just for something different. But we'll see kind of what the future holds. But yeah, that's where we usually race around the Midwest.
Okay, and so do you race against your husband ever?
Uh, Not anymore. We used to. Back, when I first got my start, he was racing B mods up in the Midwest, and then kind of got into sprint car racing. So that's kind of where we met, was racing against one another. Yeah, he won a couple championships, and so he's pretty good shoe. So we have fun talking about it. But yeah, right now we haven't been racing against one another, and I'm not sure what the future holds with that. We may try to steer clear just because we don't need that kind of animosity within the same house. But yeah, it's been a lot of fun, seeing it from this side, watching him, from a different perspective. He's got, just a way different driving style than me, and can bring in a lot of information that's been able to really help me as a driver, I think, too. So
Yeah, I would think that racing against your husband or wife or partner would not be something that you would deliberately try to do, because sometimes there's enough stress in the house without bringing in something extra like that. So, and especially racers tend to be pretty competitive.
yeah, I was just
And
gonna say. we're pretty competitive. So even like, the fun racing we do around here, which we've talked about doing stuff like that, just for fun, and it can get pretty heated. So I can't imagine putting us under, 900 horsepower machines and
No,
racing against one another there. So
no, that's probably not a good plan.
no.
So, tell me what's your favorite thing about being a race car driver?
I think my favorite thing is obviously just being in the car. It's the one place where you're in control. Nobody's really influencing you, and it's always been one of those calm, safe spots for me. And I've felt that way since I was little. I just loved being in the car. And then just the need for the competition and trying to beat the people in front of you, and like I said, I think obviously the family atmosphere is also a good. It's also one of my favorite things. There's just been a lot of people who have supported us throughout the years, and building that and building the community, I think, is great. And being obviously a woman in mostly a male sport, being able to be that kind of difference for role model for women, and little girls, I think is probably one of my outside the car favorite things. Just seeing them and getting them in the cars after the races, and just showing them what it is, and that they can do it too. So
Yeah, I wanted to talk to you about that. Obviously, of course, this is a podcast about women in motorsports,
mhm.
and you grew up with lots of men in your
Yeah.
family that were racing. Sounds like you were one of the few girls in your family. So, what would you say you want to do as far as influencing other girls? Do you have young girls and their moms that come up and talk to you about getting into racing? And what would you say to those people?
Yeah, I think over the years there's been a good handful that have actually got into racing, after they've sat in the car and they've seen that they're able to do it, and being able to help support them, whether I give them a suit or give them shoes or helmets or things like that. Obviously I want to help them in any way that I can. And I think for them, it's just giving them the confidence, that, yeah, it is a little bit intimidating being a female and mostly male dominated sport, but that you don't need to be afraid, and that you don't need to be timid about it. And I think that's kind of the way that even I've approached the whole racing. Is I've never, historically had a very girly looking car. I didn't want to kind of put a target on my back. I wanted to be treated like everybody else out there. So, even as some of the series directors have asked, why don't you really put some pink or purple or stuff like that? And I didn't want to do that, because I wanted to be part of, just like everybody else out there. I wanted to be given a fair shot and fair shake. And I think from my perspective, if I can keep building that and do more in the community with women, what that looks like, I'm kind of still trying to figure it out. But having gone through some of the concussion stuff that I've gone through, and not just being a woman, but also being a woman that had, some brain injury things, and getting back out there and stuff like that, is something that I want to tie together and try to help as many people as I can, whatever that looks like.
Yeah, let's and I was going to ask you about that too, and share whatever you're comfortable with. But I know
Mhm.
you've had some struggles, as
Yeah.
most people do in racing. But you've had some. Do you want to share a little bit about that and how you've overcome that and gotten back into the car?
Yeah, so I took a pretty bad wreck in 2018. I at the time I didn't think I'd taken back-to-back ones. It was a couple months apart, but at the time I didn't think it was really anything too serious. And then as kind of time went on, I was realizing that it was. I wasn't fully there, like emotionally, and just the vision and everything like that was really off. So the rest of 2018, I wasn't actually able to get in, but we did rebuild the car, and I got in for a practice, just because I wanted to get in there as soon as I could, because it was kind of like one of those things, ripping off the Band-Aid. You want to get back in it so it's not haunting you for the rest of the season, so or rest of the off season. So I got in, and I felt good as far as confidence in the car, but I just knew my vision and everything wasn't there. So fast forward to 2019, we started the season off, and again, I just kind of felt off a beat. I just, wasn't really on my game. I'd feel like I was really, I'd be right against the wall in my mind, and I'd look back on film and I was off, like, by a couple, either 6 feet or foot, whatever. So it was one of those things where I just never really felt great in it. And it was frustrating. It was extremely frustrating, because being competitive for the last couple years, to have to kind of rebuild that. I mean, I had a couple good runs. I still had some top fives and was hanging with the group. But at the end of the day, I knew I wasn't where I needed to be. And it actually was another accident that I had, just normal, everyday life type of thing. And it shouldn't have been anything big after playing, college sports and being, an athlete, that it should have been something that wouldn't have bothered me. Well, it kind of sent my concussion symptoms into a whirlwind, and it just got much worse. And what they don't tell you about concussions is really what it can do from an emotional standpoint, and how it can really affect a lot of different areas about, not just your memory, not just your everyday things. I mean, it can affect you really emotionally. And that's when it hit me. And so I actually got into the Mayo Clinic and was seen by one of their top, neurologists. And so throughout 2000, I rested the rest of 2019, and we were getting ready for 2020. And, he was still debating, if I was going to be able to be ready. And obviously with COVID, we didn't know quite what was happening. And then, I ended up getting pregnant. So it kind of all worked out. I get another year to recover. But it's one of those things where it can really mess with your mental state. And I'm excited to get back in there whenever that is. And I do feel like I've came a long way. As far as being in a car, I'm really excited to kind of see where I'm at and where that vision is. But from everything that I feel like, I'm back to where I need to be. But yeah, it's been quite the journey. And I urge anybody who's had them to not take them lightly, because that was the whole thing is, get back in the car when you take bad wrecks. You don't want to seem weak. And so I wanted to get right back in the car. I didn't want anybody to think anything different of me. And, especially again, being the female, I didn't want to be looked at as weak compared to everybody else. But, there's something to be said. Brain injuries are nothing to mess around with. And in our sport, unfortunately, we have great safety equipment, and it saved probably my life for sure. But there's still the risks of the injuries, and knowing that and just being smart about it, I think, is the best way to kind of go about it. But yeah.
Yeah. And like the emotional part, sometimes we don't understand ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
why we feel the way we do. And
Yep.
you maybe weren't connecting that to the accidents. And so,
Yeah.
and then you put being pregnant on top of it, that adds a whole nother layer, doesn't it? But
Yeah.
um,
Yep.
but I don't know if you've read Dale Jr.'s book, but
Yep.
I figured you had. It's a great book, and he went through the same thing you were just describing. He just got back in the car, the same as you, had another accident, and finally realized that there was something more wrong than what he was willing to admit at first. And
Mm-hmm.
that's a hard thing to say, hey, I need some help. I don't care what kind of help it is.
Yep.
And so thankfully you've set a good example for not just young women, but everyone in the sport, that yes, you can't take it lightly. It's a very serious thing,
Mm-hmm.
and better to be checked out and be okay than to keep going and then have something really serious happen. So I admire that you realize that, hey, I need a doctor's help, and no better place than the Mayo Clinic, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that was exactly it. It wasn't just, what am I jeopardizing for myself, but what am I jeopardizing for the people I'm competing against? If I think I have, a car width between me and a car, and I really don't, that kind of stuff in my reaction time, it's not worth jeopardizing everybody else. But luckily I had a really good support system. My dad, Joe, and my husband, Ryan, came to a lot of the appointments there, and they were the ones pushing it there, knowing that I wasn't right in the same sense, really helped, because it's not easy, like, for anybody to admit that they need additional help when it comes to anything, but especially when it comes to brain injuries, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure.
Yeah.
So now what's 2021 look like? Are you going to take this year off because of your baby?
Yeah, so right now we're actually building a 360 program for Ryan, and we're kind of going to focus on that to start, and then kind of see, what the end of 2021 looks like, 2022, to start rebuilding my car. Just right now with still COVID kind of lingering and businesses being down and sponsorship not being quite where it is, I'm trying to really focus on kind of getting a little bit more, rebuilding our program so I can, rebuild our into 2022. So I don't know, we'll see. Hopefully, maybe take some towards the end, maybe get in the car, but if not, have a stronger. I'd rather come back stronger with a good program than to come in kind of halfway doing it.
Yeah.
And with us both kind of trying to get in a car, I think it's probably best, especially with the newborn too. But yeah, we'll see. Like I said, I'm excited to eventually get back in a car, but I'm also excited for Ryan to kind of get back in a 360 wing car and see what he can do and be focusing on that too. So we will see.
Okay, yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, I'm with you there that sometimes we want to rush in back into something and then we're like, oh, I probably should have waited. Better to be a little bit more safe than sorry in
Yeah. Yep.
that case. And you're young and you've got plenty of time yet to get back in it. So
Well,
I
that's
know.
exactly it. Ryan was like, I didn't even get in a sprint car till I was around your age. So you've got a leg on me. So, and that's what I keep taking, for a grain of salt, that, there's only a couple years that Miss Bella will be this little and she can
Yeah.
enjoy just being at the races and I can be there for her. And eventually Ryan and I will probably switch roles and I'll be racing and he'll be doing more of the support role. So it'll be good. And I'm excited for both of our futures as far as that goes.
Yeah, absolutely. You've got plenty of time to do the things that you want to do. And those babies, let me tell you, I shared with you before we got on that my daughter had a baby in October. And luckily we've been in Arizona where we could enjoy seeing him grow these last few months, but they grow and change so quickly that you've
Mhm.
got to enjoy every minute of that little one while you can. So
Yeah.
I encourage you to do that.
Yeah, and with the boys, Nolan and Brody both racing too. We have our summers pretty much full. So throwing both of us racing can kind of create a lot. So I'll play the crew chief hat for a little bit for all three boys, and like I said, I really did, having Ryan race my non-wing car last year. I really did learn a lot, and just his knowledge and his ability to kind of see things that I don't see and feel things that I don't feel, can really, I think, really help my program going forward too. So I see it as all positive, regardless of whether I'm in or out of the car. As long as I'm involved in some way, I think is great, and still being able to be there for fans and doing events, to get women and just everybody else, getting them to come see us, and that's my goal. So still being out there and being around, I think is going to be great.
Yeah, and it isn't always about the driver. No offense to
Yeah.
the drivers, but there's a lot of things that go on that people who just go to the track to watch a race, they don't even begin to understand what it takes to put that car on the track
Hmm.
and all the things that happen behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And there's a lot to do. And I always talk to people and say, you need to go to the track at least once, go into the pits and hang out with one of your favorite drivers, ask them ahead of time, but get there when they get there at noon, when the races don't start till 6 o'clock.
Hmm.
Do all those things because you appreciate the people that are there racing so much more when you know the process,
Yeah.
because they don't show up at 5 o'clock to race at 6 o'clock. They show up at noon or
Yeah.
whatever. And
Well, like you
make
were
it.
saying, how it's different than, just going to a baseball game. It's an all day event. And we've joked about that before. It's like, yeah, it's not just going to an hour-long softball game with your kids. It's you're spending 12 hours, you're spending the whole day and night there. So yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
And especially, when you need to have people, like, just like you said, there's a lot of work, and to be having consistent, crew coming week in and week out sometimes doesn't always happen. Other people have lives and schedules and
Yeah.
things like that. So this past summer we were grateful to have occasionally some people helping. We have some good friends that chime in and do jump in and help, but some of the races it's just me, Ryan, and my dad, and obviously my mom too. But yeah, it's busy when you have things go wrong too. You got to
Yeah.
be all hands on deck. So
Oh, absolutely. And like you said, it's great to have those people that help and want to help, but they have lives too. And
right.
and it's not a pay job. you know.
No,
It's a
no, people are just
volunteer.
coming because they want to support you, and we're so grateful for the people that we do have in our corner, because without them we wouldn't be able to be there at the track all the time, and especially this coming year, with having 3 kids at the track and
Yeah.
everything like that, we'll need all the support and help that we can get. So it's like you said, it's a community, and you have people there in your corners, and that's what makes it so wonderful.
Well, and not to mention, we're talking the cost. So let's
Yeah.
talk a little bit about that. You know, you go to a football game, like, okay, that's not very expensive to have your kid playing in football compared to racing.
Right.
So, when you talk to people about the cost of tires, and let's say you have, 4 people come to help you, you probably buy their pit passes or do this or feed them, and the costs start to get way higher than what you would expect. Or people who don't have to pay, they're just spectators, they don't understand the cost. Can
Right.
you talk to me a little bit about, how do you deal that? How do you find sponsors, that kind of thing?
Yeah, so like I said, that's kind of what we've been balancing out this year just with COVID. We've had some really great sponsors over the years, and last year we really didn't get a lot of, help from them, and understandably with everything going on. So we kept most of them on as, sponsors, just assuming, just in good faith for all their support. So going back to them this year, it's a little more difficult, but with COVID kind of still lingering, but we we just keep asking, and we understand that, maybe it's not as much as they've given in the past, and kind of going back to people that maybe hadn't given us in a while, try to go back to them, and yeah, just go to local businesses. They're the ones around, and they're hurting, but if you can do an events with them, and you can bring the car out and try to drag, bring some more people and traffic to their whatever restaurant or hardware store, whatever that is, that's obviously your goal. And it's hard, on, I think, anybody, to get those sponsors. But we've had some really great support. I've worked for King Solutions for 6 years now, and they've been a huge supporter of us. FVP has supported me pretty much for the last 6 to 7 years, and they've been really great, and same with all of the other sponsors. I know Ryan has had some, Hilltop, and just people like, they, whether they donate us a tire for the night or help with fuel for the cars. I mean, every little bit counts, and that's why it's like you said, tires. I mean, for sprint car tires, you could be going through it, when the track rubber's down, you go through a set of tires a night, and that's $500 right there out the window. So
Yeah.
it is costly. As much as the programs around here try to keep the costs overall down, it still costs a lot, and that's not with anything going wrong. So we try to just balance it out, and we try to keep the people, keep asking and understanding, and try not to be pushy about it, because we understand that it's all hard times for everybody, and at the end of the day, it's our fun. So we wanted to just keep continuing that way. So
Yeah, exactly. And it was getting harder anyway to find
hmm
sponsors. And then the COVID thing has really put a damp on everything. And even events, I
yeah,
was
'cause you
supposed to
can't really
have,
bring people. Yeah.
yeah, I was
Yep.
supposed to have 15 events last summer at NASCAR events.
Yeah.
And they all got canceled because
hmm
they weren't having any fans, and then they were having limited fans, but they and same so far for this year. We're going to go to Knoxville, and we've got a couple other ones that we're working on getting scheduled. But as far as like the NASCAR events, there's just not going to be the fans there that make it worthwhile for the track or me to plan a big event. And it's really put a damper on concessions and the people that work at the track. I mean, there's so many people that it's affected that maybe we don't think about. And so, I'm just crossing my fingers that this COVID thing goes away so we can all go back to having as many fans as we want at the racetrack.
Yeah, well, that's exactly it. And even them coming down after the races, wasn't as big as this past year as it had been. And yeah, I think everybody's kind of getting ready to be back to normal after a year of this. I the tracks, drivers, people like yourselves, everybody, I think, wants a little bit of normalcy. And it was nice even last year, kind of getting to the track and seeing somewhat normal. I mean, obviously not 100%, but still fans in the stands and just being
Yeah.
at the track and feeling like at least that part was somewhat normal. But yeah, I'm looking forward to hopefully this vaccination and things like that kind of push us over this hump. And I know some of the states around here are starting to lift their masks, the mask requirements. So hopefully that means that we're moving in the right directions.
Now, what state do you live in?
I live in Minnesota.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Which they
Yeah.
haven't, but Wisconsin, which is one of our home tracks, is Cedar Lake. We race there a lot of it. They've just lifted their mask requirements. So
Yeah.
hopefully that's a step in the right direction.
Yeah, I hope so. One state at a time, I
Yeah.
live in Michigan, but I'm in Arizona for the winter. But Michigan is the one state that they can't play basketball. My granddaughter is just, she's a big basketball player, and Michigan gets she's the governor there is really clamps down on everything more so than here. I'm in Arizona, and yes, you're supposed to wear masks and everything, but everything's open.
Yeah.
And it's just such a different atmosphere. But yeah, we're
Definitely
just,
difficult. Yeah, with kids up here wearing masks while they're playing. I mean, at least they get to play, but yeah, it's hard for sure. But
it has
hey,
been.
we're coming down to visit in Arizona, so if you're still there,
Oh,
you have to come say hi.
when are you
Yeah.
going to be here?
The beginning of March. So I think
Oh,
the first
I'll
week to
be
the
here.
second week. Yep.
Yeah.
There's a race that we might try to get to depending on
Okay.
sprint car race down there. So we'll
All
see.
right. So we're going to have to talk about that when we get off the
Yeah,
podcast,
definitely.
and let me know, because yeah, I'll be here till April 1st. So sounds good.
Great.
Well, Anna, is there anything that I haven't talked to you about or asked you that you'd like to share with our listeners?
No, I think it's great what you do. I think, women in racing is every one of them out there, it's just great to have this community and the support. They're just to bring us all together, because you don't quite always hear about what's going on other places. Up here we have a few of us. I know Tori Knudsen has been probably on the podcast before too, and
Yeah.
she's a great advocate, up here. But outside of that, it's kind of nice to bring us all together a little bit for community. So, I'm proud to be a part of it. I'm proud to help support in any way. And I just hope that we can keep growing it and keep growing more women getting into the sport. And, hopefully we got another one here in about 6 years starting up. But we'll see. But yeah, I just thank you for having me on the show and the podcast. And yeah, look forward to a good season. Hopefully things open up.
Yeah, I agree. Well, I appreciate those kind words, and thank you for that. Appreciate your support of the IWMA, and hopefully we have a good summer with your husband racing. We're gonna get it to as many tracks as we can, and try to encourage women to come out and watch if they're not interested in being a race car driver. That's another thing that one of the things we want to do is show women that racing is not just a man's sport. Even as a spectator, a lot of women think, oh, that's my husband's deal, and they've never been to a racetrack. And if we can just get them there, I think they'll understand that, hey, this is pretty cool, and they'll get the bug like you and I have gotten. So,
well, it's so cool. I mean, like, you don't have to just be a driver. My Aunt Jamie, I'll just kind of give her a quick plug here. She's been I mean, a huge crew chief contributor for both my uncle when I was growing up, and now my cousin. And, she's the crew chief. She handles everything, and they go through her. And like, you don't have to just be the driver. You can be on the mechanic side and just being supportive. My mom hasn't missed, probably one of my races almost ever. So you can be there in different capacities and still be involved. It's not just a men's sport from every perspective. So there's a lot to be said about that, and there's a lot to be said that what we can bring that's different, than men in the sport, and different whole ball game when you throw some more women involved, I think, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's plenty of opportunity for anybody to get involved in any way that they're interested. So encourage the women listening. If you haven't been to the racetrack, it's time to get to your local track and check it out, and get involved, because it really is a great sport to be a part of. So
yeah, and if you're in the Midwest and you want to come out, I'm happy to take you under my wing while I'm not fully racing, it's a little bit easier for me to be able to do that and show people around the track a lot than when I'm driving. I'm a little more focused and unable to help as much. But yeah, absolutely. Any of you guys in the Minnesota area, let me know. I have my Facebook page is Anna Kouba Racing. Feel free to direct message me, and reach out. I would love to hear from you.
Okay, that's awesome. So there's your invitation, ladies. You have no excuse not to get out there and check out the behind the scenes part too of being involved with a race team. So Anna, I just want to thank you so much for taking time. I know when you have a new baby, sometimes it's not, things don't always work out. And then I had a technical issue. So we had a little issues this morning, but thank goodness that we finally connected. We've been wanting to do this for a while, and I appreciate you and all the things that you do. And I definitely want to see you in March when you come out. So
absolutely.
Thanks for being a part of this, and have a good season.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Spending time with her husband, friends, family, including her 12 grandchildren. In her spare time, she connects and celebrates with the women involved in motorsports, taking you behind the wall about their journey of life, racing, and how they juggle everything to make it all work. Welcome to Racing Girls Rock Podcast. Strap in, window nets up, the pedals are down, and when the green flag drops, we go.